So here we go. Uh, on the play with the easy mulligan here. Yeah. Nothing to say about this hand except easy mulligan. So yeah, easy keep here. Issue being double black, only one black source. And our opponent mulligans as well. Down to 5 even. So we're going to keep this on top. We're still playing Evolving Wilds turn 1. Now we have the choice of either shuffling away Hissing Quagmire or drawing it and to get our second black source. The reason we would want to shuffle away the Hissing Quagmire is if we really wanted to play Snake turn 2 and just needed to naturally draw the second black, like if we were in some sort of really fast matchup. But since our opponent mulliganed to 5, we're happy to basically take this turn off to fix our mana. So we go ahead and do that, and then go ahead and get our swamp and see a Servant of the Conduit. So still not entirely sure what our opponent's up to, but since they did mulligan to 5, I think Ruinous Pathing here is pretty great. There's a good chance we are gonna cause some major mana issues for them. Turns out we didn't really cause major mana issues, but that's fine. Killing Servant was still good for us. So we're gonna Mind Rack here, and Nissa was a great draw since we're gonna be able to snake Nissa at some point, which is a really powerful setup. And our opponent attunes. So interesting that they're getting a second island. Usually this deck is going to be running the Felidar Saheeli combo, but it's possible our opponent isn't. We're still not sure at this point. We're assuming they're Elder Deep Fiending at this point though. So Nissa plus Snake, and another Snake is great, especially when we have Nissa. Whirl of Virtuoso is pretty good at pecking away at Nissa though, so we're going to want to use it before it gets too low. So second Snake, Ballista, obviously a great draw here, because we're going to just go off if our opponent doesn't have major disruption. So 3/3 Ballista minus Nissa, gigantic everything, and our opponent Elder Deep Fiends, which we do not really care about at all since we're at a healthy 18 life, and they just concede. So not sure how to sideboard against our opponent. We're not entirely sure what they're up to. We're not sure if they're Felidar Guardian and we're just like slow rolling the planes, or if they are Aetherworks Marveling, or just some sort of weird energy aggro beatdown. Regardless though, we're going to want Transgresses for sure, and Pick the Brains probably, just as our hedges against pretty much no matter what. From what we've seen, we want this against Elder Deep Fiend, and we want it against whether it's either Aetherworks Marvel or Felidar Guardian or both. We want that. So Kalitas, however you say it, is actually pretty good against Elder Deep Fiend since it kind of punishes Emerge. So I like that. If we knew our opponent had Aetherworks Marvel, we would want Natural Obsolescence, but we don't know that at this point. And as far as removal goes, we probably want Grasp as our primary removal. So, cards to remove. Want to get rid of all the Fatal Pushes, since Fatal Push is not good against Rogue Refiner, Whirler Virtuoso, or Elder Deep Fiend. Don't want Obnixilis. Obnixilis, pretty bad removal against Elder Deep Fiend as well. Mind Rack Demon, not really relevant enough, so prefer the Cletus. And definitely want some amount of grasps in. It's just a question of how many. And here we probably only want like 2 grasps. We're just going to sort of not worry about removal. Even probably Ruinous Path is better than Grasp when we've got all this hand disruption. And we are assuming our opponent isn't even on the combo, so probably just like this is how I'd sideboard. And then bring in the Natural Obsolescences if we do see Marvel, or if we know they're on Marvel. So opponent mulligans again. We have a decent hand, some powerful 3-drops, and just lead on our Hissing Quagmire. Hissing Quagmire, usually what you want to lead on. And here we traverse, and we do want to get Evolving Wilds value off of a Tireless Trafficker with this specific hand. Since we have just a glut of 3-drops, we know pretty much what our turns are going to look like. We're going to Nissa this turn, and then Tracker Evolving Wilds next turn, most likely. So we want to get maximum clue value, which is what we're going to do. Alright, so our opponent does have Aetherworks Marvel, and unfortunately we do not have in Natural Obsolescence, which is a great answer to Marvel. It doesn't even give them energy when you kill it. So we want to just kill them as quickly as possible. So we aggressively start minusing this, so we cannot work up to ult with the way things are at the moment. And our opponent, thankfully, mercifully, is not really doing a whole lot. And here we do want to keep up the pressure and pick the brain. So unfortunately we cannot get rid of Ulamongs, otherwise we would probably just do that. Still, this hand is pretty terrible, and I mean, we're gonna win next turn if our opponent just has nothing. They are dead. We go Nissa, sack a clue, and they're dead. So we take the Elder Deep Fiend, obviously, and they draw pretty much the best card possible in Woodweaver's Puzzle, which is going to bolster their life total and allow them to get probably multiple activations off this Aetherworks Marvel. So we know Transgress isn't really doing anything. Their hand is not exciting unless they drew something good off of this, which means we want to continue pressuring. I like Cletus because it exiles Rogue Refiner. The issue with this is that our opponent can actually shock off our Tireless Tracker. Excuse me. Which they neglect to do, which is probably an oversight. Probably an oversight on both our parts. I possibly should have been more respectful of that shock and just like Nissa minused. But our opponent is going to get another Aetherworks Marvel activation. So we're hoping it's not Ulamog. And it wasn't Ulamog, but it is another Aetherworks Marvel, which is going to get another activation. And now it's Ulamog. Perfect. So we're not completely dead. We have 44 cards in our library, which is not the worst amount. We can potentially take 2 attacks from this and win. Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to mount enough of an offensive at this point. Our opponent is at 15 life, and they do have a Harness Lightning for that tracker. So we're just taking this 10, getting half our library exiled, and not really drawing anything of relevance. And now we even need to chump block this Ulamog, because it'll kill us with damage, and we just scoop him up. So game 3, now I have Natural Obsolescence. And this hand is obviously great. Snake into Nissa is a really powerful start. So we obviously just get a swamp there, and then we're going to deploy our snake. And so now we have to choose between ignoring the servant or grasping it. And Nissa is just such a strong play here that we're just going to ignore it. Especially since we have a Natural Obsolescence. If our opponent casts Aetherworks Marvel this turn, we're pretty happy about that. Unfortunately, they do not. So here I grasp the Whirler. It's kind of higher value than Servant when we have Nissa out. And I could have been more aggressive here, but I'm kind of just happy playing a little slower because I do have Pick the Brain Natural Obsolescence to pretty much deal with everything. Our opponent is kind of answering what we're doing pretty well though with Rogue Refiner, because it's good for grinding. So here, minusing Nissa is actually very appealing, and even if Tireless Tracker had have survived, we would have for sure minus Nissa. Now it's less appealing, although still would have been good. But we're gonna be greedy here and try and wait another turn before we minus Nissa. And now our snake's dead. So getting a little bit greedy there. And now our Nissa is under pressure and we just have some plants. So kind of punished for not minusing when we had the chance. And now we're going to be losing our plants and treading water with our Nissa for a little while. And another Natural Obsolescence. So our opponent bottoms off the puzzle knots, and we're actually just going to start clearing up this board since that's what our hand does best. And another Rogue Refiner. So we kind of played poorly for the value game, which is what our opponent was focusing on here. On the other hand, our deck is just much better at playing the value game in general, so it wasn't the biggest deal. And this Evolving Wilds actually gave us Delirium for Pick the Brain, so it was a pretty good draw. So now we're hoping to pick something good, and we do. Picking Ulamog is completely fine, since it's going to make Aetherworks Marvel that much worse. Now it's going to be pretty hard for our opponent to win. without chaining Ulamog's off of Aetherworks Marvel. But they do have a superior board here, obviously, at the moment. So we're hoping they don't top deck anything immediately. So the nice thing about focusing on our Nissa, plussing our Nissa, is that now we're going to have a good shot at ulting Nissa. We know our opponent has nothing, so they're going to need to find a way to disrupt Nissa, and that is not a way. Our hissing Quagmires are going to be able to take out the ground, and we're just going to natural obsolescence this Thopter and attempt to ult Nissa before our opponent draws a solution. And Nissa's ult does come up a surprisingly often amount. Of course, Transgress, not what we really want. And our opponent is not really drawing what they want. So, yep. Definitely want to be playing our lands, since Nissa's ult is Sphinx's Revelation for the amount of lands you have. And our opponent does not draw an answer, and just packs it in the face of us drawing 6 to 7 cards here. Yeah, Nissa, good stuff.